Okay, can anyone hear me? I'm here now. So, again, I'm asking anyone that's listening right now to let me know in the live chat if you can hear me clearly. I always do this. So, let me know. Let me know, folks. Yes, it's live. Okay, so that's good. Let me know if you can hear me clearly, please. Okay, so let's see. There are 4 viewers now. I guess I can start this live stream. And let me, I can use this image for a moment. So hold on. Good. In this message, I want to talk about, well, message live stream, I want to talk about distractions. It's a Sabbath now. For those that are in the Western Hemisphere, the Sabbath will go on for a few hours still. Here in Western Europe, the Sabbath is ending, though to sunset, even though the sun is still up. So I want to use this moment to talk about distractions, what distractions are not, and how to deal with distractions in a Christ centered manner. That is the goal of this live stream. So, in the background of this live stream, you see an image. Well, let's say this is a real woman, okay? Because I know that in advertisement they often use trannies, but okay, let's say it's a real woman for for now. We're not going to do any transvestigation. You see a female at work. She doesn't wear a tie because that's something that's meant for males. So, okay, so they did that thing right here. You see that she's looking in a very stressed way. She has a headache coming up. Why? Because look at this. You have a calculator here. You have a tablet. You have two notebooks, so two computers over here. You have one manager here showing her the time, and another one showing her uh, a clock, which is an alarm also, and a mobile phone. So he uses both old and new technology. So she's placed under a lot of pressure mentally. And this mental pressure will wear her out physically over time. She is told to focus to get her work done. So she doesn't want to be distracted. But what if her main task that she's involved in is a distraction in itself? Because that's also something the enemy often does. The enemy tricks you into something that's less relevant to you. And because this thing is less relevant, you can do without it, or you can delay um, putting attention onto that thing, whatever that thing is. But the enemy has a way of making things that are less relevant appear as the most relevant. And because your perception is now blurred, that thing that's less relevant, you now perceive as the most relevant thing at the moment. And because of that, you don't want to be distracted from focusing on that thing. But if that thing itself is distraction, then you are fighting a distraction against a distraction. So you're still trapped in a distraction. A lot of people don't notice it when they are in a distraction, because it's very easy to fall into a distraction. It happens to everyone. It happens to believers as well as unbelievers, to people who are highly educated, to people who have no education, to people that are young, people that are old. However, you can sense when something is a distraction. When something is a distraction, pay attention to what I'm saying here. When something is a distraction, it will always bring some unease with it. Let me repeat it one more time. Every distraction will bring unease with it. No matter what the distraction is, no matter what the method is, no matter what the lie is, there will always be unease with the distraction. Because that is your radar going off that something is amiss. And that radar will always go off when something is amiss. But society conditions you to ignore your inner radar. And because most adults are so into being accepted by society, they are striving daily to be accepted by their boss, by their co-workers, or by their relatives, by their spouses. They are so into this acceptance by society that they don't sense their inner radar anymore. And that's very dangerous, because every distraction that will come your way will bring unease with it. The unease is part of the distraction. Okay. This is a mobile phone. Okay. The mobile phone has a front side and a back side. I can't hand someone a mobile phone without handing them the back side, because when I give them the front, even if I give it to them like this, they will have to grab it and they will have to be involved with the back side. It's a natural object. Now, a mobile phone is not a natural object, but it's made of natural materials. For example, metal or glass, plastic. So it is an object, and object has different sides. I can't say to you, here's an iPhone, but you only get the front side of it. Someone tell you that's not possible, because the moment you give me an object, there's always the object exists at other multiple sides. So it's not possible to give someone an object without one of the natural dimensions attached to it. The same way, every distraction comes with unease. It's part of a distraction to give you unease. Let me see. So, this is how demons do it. I've said this before, but this live streaming is specifically about distractions, so I'm going to repeat it for you. When Satan came into the Garden of Eden, okay, because I'm going to the beginning, to the first distraction the enemy used on the human population. This fallen angel, or better, the fallen cherub, he entered the earth realm. He shouldn't have been here. He masqueraded as a serpent. He could do that by taking in some of the electromagnetic emissions from the earth and then make himself a bit hard, and he could morph himself also. So this entity Satan, he masqueraded as a serpent. And as a serpent, he communicated with the woman. The woman, who's emotionally wired, that's how she's designed by the Most High, relates to others, not only based on her emotions, but mainly through her emotions. It's how she relates to others. So the enemy saw this and realized, I can trick her. I can use this emotionality of the female to trick her against the husband. Because to go to the husband directly, the husband who had one-on-one experience with the Most High, that's not going to work. So this woman who didn't have this one-on-one interaction with the Most High before, because she was created later on, she has therefore lack of knowledge. But this lack of knowledge is not anything bad, because her husband is there to supply the knowledge he had received from the Most High. But she has a natural lack of knowledge because she came afterwards. So let me use this gap in her thinking to trick her away from God. And this is what he did. He asked the woman, had God said that he shouldn't eat from any tree in the garden? Look at what the enemy did. He asked a question, but he implied an accusation in the question. And it was an accusation that didn't add up. Had God said that you couldn't eat from any tree in the garden? Of course, the woman would say, no, we can't eat from any tree in the garden, except from that one tree, because we can't even touch it because we will die. But here's the thing: the Most High didn't say you couldn't touch the tree. He only said you couldn't eat out of it. So where did this addition to not even touch it comes from? It comes from it came from Eve herself, who reasoned in her thinking, okay, if you're not allowed to eat it, then being close to it itself may be dangerous. So that was her interpretation. She placed her interpretation on the situation. And human beings often do that. Males and females do it. So Satan, by asking this question, also found out that she had her own interpretation that she attached to the situation. And now the enemy knew, oh, she also has her own interpretation. So somewhere she is not very happy with the fact that they're not allowed to eat from that tree, because she can't understand. She trusts her husband and she operates in trust, but somewhere she's wondering why. Then Satan used that fertile soil in her soul to deceive her. Then Satan came with, you shall surely not die. So he contradicted God's word. But God knows, the serpent said, that the day you eat of it, you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And look at this. Satan offered Eve something she already had. She was designed after God's likeness, as a complement to the human male, who is God's reflection, who is made in God's image. So she and Adam were already like God. Okay, they were not gods, but they were like God. And they didn't need knowledge, that means involvement with good and evil. They didn't need it. Why? Because they lived at God's expense directly. That's why their bodies were immortal. Not because of their own, they didn't have any inherent immortality in themselves, but they lived out of God's immortality. While God is eternal, that is beyond immortal, but you get what I'm saying. So, knowledge of good and evil was not relevant to the first couple. It wasn't at all. Because they didn't need knowledge of good or evil. They didn't have to concern themselves with what was best for them and what wasn't. That was God's concern. So they shouldn't even have to think about good and evil, because they trust God completely. But what Satan suggested was that you can't trust God, because God knows something you don't. And the reason God didn't tell you what he knows is because he wants to have an advantage over you. So God wants to have an advantage over you, but he doesn't want to inform you why he wants an advantage over you. So somewhere you can't trust God. So You must prove yourself against God that you're worthy of this information. That is the first lie Satan used on the human population. Now, Eve was tricked. Adam got along with it because Adam wanted to deal with the situation on his terms instead of relying on Christ. And that was the first sin. Mankind fell. And we experience the consequences now. How did Satan scam the first couple? He used suggestion. And the suggestion he used was that something that was less relevant to their well-being was the most relevant. Pay attention. Before the serpent, or let me say Satan, tricked Eve, that tree of knowledge of good and evil, just like any other tree. There were possibly trillions of trees on the earth, fresh trees, back then. And in the Garden of Eden, which was in Africa, I explained it before, you had many fresh trees. So that one particular tree, the knowledge of good and evil, wasn't that special compared to all the other trees, because you could eat from any other tree. But now, because they were suggested that they were lacking something, and they had to deal with this lack, now they were thinking, okay, if we have lack, where's the lack? Oh, the lack comes because there is knowledge that you don't have, that God does. Because God has entrusted to you that knowledge yet, but you need that knowledge. So, the first scam used on the human population was not to do evil. It was to get a need met. But that need was not relevant onto them. It wasn't, let me say this, the need for knowledge, it didn't have that urgency. But because now they were tricked into focusing on that need, they forgot all the other needs that were already met in abundance. And that is what the enemy does today also. Whenever he comes with his scams, it's to make you focus on one thing that hasn't been done yet, or something that still has to be worked out. And by doing that, you forget all the other things that are already working out. So something that's less relevant or less urgent now becomes the most urgent to you. That is a distraction. Right over there. So, whenever the enemy comes to you, he doesn't send demons to tell you, you know what, just go to the club tonight and drink some whiskey. You may not be someone that drinks whiskey. He's not going to suggest it onto you. The enemy may not come and tell you, oh, just go to a casino and waste all your money. Maybe you'll win. You are a responsible individual. You know you have to pay rent. You know you have to go to the supermarket. So you're not doing that. So the enemy is not going to suggest those destructive things onto you. But the enemy will suggest onto you that you aren't well organized. And can be that in your decision making you're a bit messy here and there. However, the enemy also sees that you are alert. You pay attention to what's going on around you, and that's a very good thing. Now, the enemy doesn't want you to pay much attention to what's going on around you, because the enemy knows if you keep paying attention to what's going on around you, you will notice things. You will notice his deceptions. So the enemy wants you distracted. So the enemy is going to point out to your messy decision making, and he's going to emphasize on it so much that you will think, okay, I need to do something about this messiness in my decision making. And then you think, you know what? I may have to follow a course in management or learn how to say no to people, or how to, as the world call it, enforce boundaries, all of that. So now you are in all these pagan teachings on how to deal with your messiness in decision making. But now you're so into improving yourself that you don't notice what's going on around you anymore. You don't even notice that some of the people you used to hang out with are not around you anymore. You don't even notice that the other people that walk in your life are all toxic. So now there are bad things happening around you that are affecting you, but you're not even aware it's affecting you. Why? Because you're so focused on improving your decision-making skills. Here comes the big bump of truth. God never intended for you to improve in that area, because the blessing and the anointing worked out nevertheless. So even though you could have improved in your decision making, it wasn't necessary. It was less relevant. But because the enemy kept reminding you to what the world wants and what other people expect of you, you were now distracted by that one thing that could have been improved but didn't had to improve. That's how the enemy does it. So whatever's going on in your life, whether things are going smoothly, or whether you have attacks here and there, psychic attacks, or whether things fall apart here, or another disaster comes over there, whatever's going on, just relax. Take some tea or drink some Coke. I'm talking about Coca-Cola. I'm not talking about dead drugs, but okay. Or just go to the beach or go running. Or if you have a spouse, spend some time with your spouse. You know what you have to do. Make sure you are at ease. And when you are at ease, you go into prayer. You're going to sing praises. And then, slowly but slowly, your mind will begin to your mind will freshen itself, and you'll begin to notice things you didn't notice before. Then you'll be able to see distractions for what they are when you look at the timing of when things happen. So, I explained to you what a distraction is. Distractions are used by the shadow government on the world's population. That's how they keep their pagan oppression of human population going. That's how they've been doing it for centuries. But pagan businessmen, as well as pagan politicians, I can't find a politician that's not pagan, but you get what I'm saying here. They also use distractions on the population. They use false flags or hoax events to keep people anxious. Now, there are real mass shootings, there are real terrorist attacks, there are real bad and grievous things happening. Okay, that's true. But not every report you receive about something bad that happened is true. It can be that something bad happened, and now they pick up that one bad thing that happens over there and they spread it all over the media. And can it be that 4 other bad things also happened at the same time, but you don't receive any coverage of it? So they're using that one bad thing that happened over there to trap your mind, to make you focus on that. Why? It's because that bad thing that happened, either it was a crime operation or some blood sacrifice ritual that they conducted, and that's why they're spreading their filth to trick you into worshiping the beast. Because don't you realize when you are exhausted by anxiety, that is also a form of worship? Because you not being able to function properly in your mind will contribute to you unknowingly supplying negative energy to evil spirits. So that's sponsoring evil spirits. So they want to trap you in unconscious worship of the beast. They may not get you so far to worship the beast consciously, but they want you to unconsciously be attached to the beast system. That's why they use those trauma rituals to get a hold on your mind. And that's why they use those symbolisms and those numerologies just to capture your mind. Now, there are really bad things that happen because in the world you have horrible people doing horrible things to other people. Such things happen. But what they report to you, either is exaggerated, either it's selected and transferred onto you in a ritual manner, or it was a hoax to begin with. So understand that. Now, I want you to tell me if you understand everything I've been saying until now. I just want this to be clear before I continue. Let me know in the chat. I'll just wait till I get an answer. Meanwhile, hold on. Okay. Sorry for the delay in the video. Okay, I don't know why this delay happens, but okay. I want you to consider the following. What I'm going to show you now, I didn't make this. Let me be very clear, I didn't make this block. I don't agree with everything that's on this block, absolutely not. However, the people that made this block, whoever they are open-minded, they are considering things. And I'm not promoting this blog. First of all, it's partly in Dutch, and most of you here can't speak Dutch because I don't have that much subscribers in the Netherlands for some reason, or maybe I do, but okay. Just understand that worldly people, even though they don't have the spiritual knowledge that comes from Christ, they can notice things. So, I want you to consider the following. What if not all, okay? Because I'm not into conspiracy theories here. I deal with facts. What if many of the crimes that are reported onto you, what if many of them are just the work of pagan actors who follow an agenda to keep you trapped? What if? I'm not saying it is or this, but think about what if that's happening. How would that affect you, knowing that this is going on? Just think about it. It can be that you hear that this girl went missing in the 1970s, and it was big news back then. Well, girl, she was 18 years old or 20 years old. She just went missing, and 20 years later, or let's say 30 years later, people still don't know where she is, and her parents are getting older. They are elderly now. They're about to die, and you see them on TV, and you think, oh dear, what have those parents gone through past 30 years? And you feel bad for the parents, and I don't blame you. But then you begin to think about the case, and you realize that, hold on a minute. So let's say the case was in 1979. 2009 was 30 years, 2019 is 40 years. You think to yourself, okay, so this individual went missing in the 1970s. At the time, there was a big police search. Nobody found anything. Later, they reopened the case in 2009, and they couldn't find anything at all. But as you look at the case, you watch all the documentaries that were made over time. You listen to the eyewitness accounts of the people, and you realize that nothing in the case adds up. But there's also a red flag. When you have a case and almost nothing of that case adds up, then you know that there's something wrong with that case. Either they're hiding something from you, that's why you can't put your finger on what's missing, or that case is a hoax. It's a psyop designed to keep people's attention away from something else. Let's say now you realize that this case was a psyop. What's going to happen then? You're going to feel cheated. You're going to feel lied to. You're going to become upset because you think, I've been lied to. But then you're going to ask, why have I been lied to? And she realized that that you haven't been lied individually, that the whole population was lied to. And then you think, okay, 1979, we're in 2019 now. Why did they reopen this case after 30 years, um, breaking open old wounds? Why did they use this psyop again? Why did they recycle the psyop? What is it that they want us not to know? And then, slowly but surely, you begin to look into the history, into the newspapers, and you find out that there was an industrialization going on in that area in the 1970s, early 1980s, and many people were losing their job. So there was mass employment that came into being since 1976. And many people became upset because the local authorities weren't doing anything. And at the same time, there were migrants that came in and they got jobs easily. So this would eventually lead to a big fight. So it was during that time that this case of this missing girl came that captured people's attention. So everyone's feeling sad for the parents because their daughter went missing. So for a couple of years, it captured people's attention. And while people were so distracted by that fake case, they weren't focused anymore on the fact that there were so many unemployed people. And eventually, people that were unemployed received welfare benefits. And now you had more migrants living in that area with far better jobs than the locals. But people now became accustomed to the situation, even though they never would have accepted the new situation. And in 2005, 2006, the young people that were born later realized that many of their parents had low-paying jobs, many of the migrants had high-paying jobs. So they began to ask questions. And then the spell that was placed by that hoax on the population broke when the young people began to ask questions. And now their parents, who were distracted by that case in the 1970s, now became alert, thinking, what is this? How could we have accepted this? And now that the leaders realize, oh, the people have waken up, okay, we're going to talk about that missing girl again. We're going to hire some actors that pretend to be our parents, and those actors may be still alive, so we're going to hire them, and people are going to feel sad again. And again, people are distracted. That's how it goes. Anytime the population is about to become alert of what's going on, it doesn't add up, the pagans who want to keep the population distracted, they come with a hoax, with a distraction. If someone went missing, it's very important to find them. I agree with that. And whether someone went missing 20 or 30 years ago or 40 years ago, if there's a chance to find out what happened, we should find out what happened. Even if the relatives are not alive anymore, even if nobody really is interested in it, people can't just go missing and we just allow it to happen. So just for the sanity of the population, it's important to find out what happened to the missing people. I agree with that. It's a relevant thing. But this relevancy should not become the prime relevance if there are other things happening in that community that are far more harmful. If there are criminal gangs stalking people in that community, then that should be addressed immediately. Yes, if there are missing people, we should address it also, but the immediate threat in the community needs to be dealt with. But if people begin to pay a lot of attention to missing people, and they don't deal with the actual violence exploding within their community, now that's a distraction. Because something that is relevant, but less relevant, now becomes the prime relevant object. So, when you are dealing with mainstream media, this is what they do. Okay, first I'm going to show something from that blog, because I'm going to move further into this talk about distractions. By the way, I don't agree with everything that's on this blog. I've said this before. This is a Dutch actor. I watched some of the things he was acting in. He can act well, but you may think, what does this guy has to do with this Natalie Holloway thing and this Joran van der Sloot? Well, let's go below. By the way, I'm not saying this is the case, okay? These figures look quite similar. Similar eyes. Teeth are a bit similar also. The build of the face. Wide cheekbones over here, which is not a feminine skull feature. So now, am I saying that this is the case, that this Dutch guy that he played Natalie Holloway? No. But something is off here. The same with this Joran van der Sloot's figure. It's kind of a feminine vibe going on here, even though he does have a little bit of wide cheekbones. And it's a bit weird that this character in Criminal Minds, she appeared, I found out, in season 6 that began in 2010. During that time. And this guy appeared in 2005 on the world stage as a suspect in the Natalie Holloway case. And in 2010, 5 years later, he was again the center of attention due to the quote-unquote death of Stephanie Flores. And during the second time he was in the public eye, this figure made her career in Criminal Minds. So you have one distraction going on, and together with another one. And they may be played by the same actor. Now, I'm not saying 100% sure that the people of this blog were quite critical of what's going on in mainstream media. They are correct. I just want you to have an open mind. The world you're living in is a world of deception. Those that rule this world have no interest in having you informed. I'm just telling you as it is. They have no interest in having an informed, well-aware population. They don't. Because an informed, well-aware population would never accept the condition the world is in. They wouldn't. They would think, oh, okay, what is this? And rightfully so. So what do? When you have a population, they say it's 7 billion, okay, maybe a bit lower, especially because China is committing fraud with its population numbers. But let's say it is 7 billion. But okay, no, let's forget the world's population now. Let's focus, for example, on the United States. The United States is around 330 million, I think. 327.2 million. So let's just say 330 million people you live in the United States, that live in the United States. Let's say that. So you have 330 million people across 50 states and several territoria, and most of them are stuck from 9 to 5 in an office or at work. So they're being drained. And because most of those millions of people are drained daily, evil spirits feed off of it. So evil spirits are fed. And that's what the evil spirits want. They are fed with the negative energy of the people being drained. You want to keep the people in a state of being drained. It's both population control as well as keeping them away from doing God's will. So you achieve two ends by keeping them stuck in 9 to 5. So what happens now is that you need to make sure they feel a bit happy being stuck. Because, for example, if you have a plantation and you have slaves working there and you're only beating them all the time and screaming at them, there comes a point that they snap and they turn on you and they kill you. So you don't want that to happen. You want your slave population to be happy in the plantation. Even though mentally they may acknowledge that they are stuck in slavery, you want them to feel comfortable with the slavery. So one way to make them feel comfortable is by giving them days off holidays or vacations, or by giving them promotions, like they can become a higher slave with other slaves below them. But there's another way to keep the slaves happy, at least what they consider happy in the world. And that is by offering narcissistic supply to them that they are not worse off than they are. Let me repeat that. One way to keep a slave population happy is by giving them narcissistic supply that they are not as worse off as others. And you do that by having those fake crimes that you're reporting of, crimes that are so shocking that people become agitated, but they will eventually look around them and realize, oh, I got a smartphone, I can watch YouTube, I have a flat screen TV, or I'm going to the club every weekend, so okay, I have a good life, things are going well. You give them narcissistic supply to relieve them, so it will not get through to them that they are being drained, that their life is being taken away from them. And that's what mainstream media does. I'm not saying that all that's reported in mainstream media is a hoax. I'm not going that far, but many of the things they show you, think twice about them. And ask yourself why they are showing that onto the masses. So ask yourself, why are they showing it onto the masses? That's what you need to ask yourself. So, about fake courts, fake cases, okay, I've discussed that. Now I'm going to use one case as an example before I continue to other forms of distractions. It's about the MH17. Who of you remembers this case of the MH17 flight that flew above Ukraine and the Russian missile gunned it down? This is just a CGI animation, but that's allegedly what happened. Over 200 Dutch nationals died, also Malaysian people. The Russians were blamed, even though some said it was the Ukrainians. There was a whole thing going on. But there's one thing about this case, one particular thing that didn't add up at all. And it's one thing that many people did not pay any attention to. If a plane is gunned down, I said gunned down, it's a rocket is used to bring it down. Over 200 nationals die from your own country. How come most people of that country, in this case the Netherlands, remain so calm? That was what disturbed me the most when that happened. That many of the Dutch were so calm. I mean, if there is an airplane that crashes somewhere and many Americans die, I dare to say that in the United States, many Americans will begin to ask questions, what is that? There was this Benghazi controversy under the Obama administration with Hillary Clinton, where allegedly, at least that's what the story says, that she didn't warn people of the American embassy when things became violent, and eventually some Americans died. I believe, I don't know whether it were 2 Americans or 3, but some Americans died. And American people in general, so not every individual American, but American people in general were thinking, oh, okay. So you allow American citizens to die abroad, Hillary? What? Are you out of your mind? For just 2 or 3 lives, millions of Americans became upset. And that's one of the reasons why many wanted Trump to become president, because they couldn't trust Hillary. Now we go to the Netherlands. An airplane carrying 200 Dutch people is brought down. And you guys are upset, but you guys don't put any pressure on your prime minister to take actions against Russia. Am I saying they should have picked up weapons against Russia? No. What they should have done was things like, okay, the prime minister of the Netherlands should have said, okay, so let me get this straight. 200 of our people are killed, actually more. We're embarrassed. It's in a war zone where Russia is also involved. Russia doesn't want to comply with the investigation, even though there are hints that they are involved. You know what we're going to do? We're going to say to the Russian ambassador in the Netherlands, okay, all Russian assets in the Netherlands are frozen, and all financial assets from Russia in Dutch corporations worldwide are frozen also. And Dutch people in Russia receive permission to receive finances to come back to the Netherlands whenever they want, very quickly. And every Russian national in the Netherlands is put on civilians. That's the type of action the Dutch prime minister should have taken. And then the Russians would realize, okay, we need to calm down, because Russia had its economic problems at the time, and Russia couldn't deal also with economic warfare. But what happened? Was there any proactive action taken on behalf of the Dutch victims, as well as the traumatized Dutch people, by either the Dutch prime minister or by the Dutch government? No. Zero. After a while, there were other showbiz things going on Dutch TV, and they just forgot about it. And I'm thinking, what? So 200 of your people are killed? So you're dragged as a nation in a conflict that you shouldn't be involved in? And now you want answers of those involved they don't want to give to you, and you just forget about it, so you don't care about those lives that have been taken? Now, why do I mention this MH17 case? First of all, I have doubts about this case. I'm very frank. Also because there were many fake passengers that were exposed very quickly after this happened. There was this fake news in the Netherlands of several children that allegedly died on that plane, while those children never existed. The school they attended never knew them. So there were a lot of hoaxes around this event. So that's why I don't trust the reports about it. But I want to focus on the reaction of the Dutch people. The Dutch people at this moment in time, this is not only the Dutch people, I need to mention this, because they have displayed this despicable, embarrassing attitude to the whole world. They are so used to distractions that they can't figure out when something is relevant for them as a people. Because if what happened back then was real, till this day, Russians in the Netherlands should be uncomfortable. Till this day. It didn't happen. It will be the same as you have your neighborhood, and there is this guy that comes by, rapes several women over there, and instead of reporting to the police and to force the police and authorities to take action to arrest the guy, you guys think, oh crap, he raped several of our women over here. Those women are traumatized for life, but oh, all right. Oh, we have a cup of tea over here, or we can smoke some joint, and you don't even think about what happened anymore. But you still have those women walking around with traumas. And now you have dysfunctional marriages, Now you may have domestic violence later on. So all these curses are now manifesting, but you're happy because you have a cup of tea. That's the type of attitude that the Dutch had shown. And I was thinking, I was quite angry back then because I'm thinking, come on. So you don't care at all about your people? Now, why am I pointing this out? Because the elite use such events to test how far they can go with the population. And Dutch society had shown to the rest of the world, hey, and this may be harsh language, but they made plain to the world, you can screw us all over. We don't care as long as we have our cup of tea. You just kill some of our people. It's very tragic, but okay, we can watch TV at night. That's the attitude they've shown, and it's an unnatural reaction. And you know what? Ever since then, the Dutch people have been scammed over and over again till this day. There are many Dutch corporations going bankrupt. Let me say the homeless issue is becoming bigger. The unemployment is becoming bigger. But they're all saying, oh, things are very well over here. This society, where I'm residing at the moment, has become delusional. And this one I want to put out to you. When a population keeps feeding themselves with these distractions, they become delusional. Now, this is not the purpose of the elite, but this is what eventually happens. Because you cannot be distracted over and over again and never realize something is wrong. Because remember what I said earlier in this video. With every distraction, there will be unease. But if you are distracted over and over again as a population, and you've got used to the unease, and now you're seeking relief from this unease, instead of realizing, okay, I feel unease, or we feel unease as a people, what's going on? You don't want to ask what's going on, you just want relief from it over and over again. Now you are sponsoring the distractions that are sent to distract you. When this happens to people, they become delusional. Yes, delusional. And you know what happens with delusional people? They will lose it. They will. They become dangerous. Now, that's one to say about that case of MH17, because it was something in 2014. I was 23 years old. That's what I became. I was 22, turning 23. It was the time that my YouTube channel began to get many views worldwide. I was really thinking, okay, don't tell me this is happening. But well, it was happening. I had to accept it was happening. So understand, believers, distractions will make you delusional if you don't seek deliverance from those distractions. I don't talk about individual distractions because it's difficult to distract a simple individual. But collective distractions work easily. It's far easier to distract a whole population than it is to distract a single individual. And because you want everyone to be distracted, you will use multiple distractions here and there. So I'm going to use another event now, actually two events, to point out this thing of collective distraction. By the way, one more thing here, believers. I'm not glorifying the enemy, no. I gave you the solution in the beginning, that you need to process what's going on. Okay? I'm just showing you in this live stream how they deceived us recently. I'm using recent examples because you can also remember them. Because then the spell that they forced on you will be broken also. So the Paris. Okay. Now look, the Paris attacks, which happened on November the 15th, 2015. And well, in the Bataclan, as you know, and this guy here, Abdel al-Islam, became the face of an international manhunt, trying to find out where he was. Oh, you guys probably remember it. It's not that long ago. It's 4 years ago. Later, shortly after that, you had the Brussels blasts near the airports. This is all restored now, but then you have that. You also have a Nice truck attack that killed people in France. Allegedly, yeah. Even though I'm a bit suspicious on some of the footage that were shown. But just think about this. Since 2014, because we also had since end of 2014 until now, you had a series of violent attacks throughout Europe. You had minor ones and you had the big ones. They don't talk about the minor ones. But at the same time that all these attacks were going on, there was yet a high migration wave into Europe. It was happening at the same time. So don't you think it's a bit weird that you have this high migration wave going on into Europe? Something the locals were not happy with, and at the same time you have all those attacks going on. There's no coincidence. And at the same time, you have an aging population of native white Europeans. So you have the white native population depopulating in various areas. So that will lead to an economic collapse. This was told like a decade before this about to happen, but people just didn't care. Well, actually, decades prior, this was predicted. And now, to prevent this economic collapse, the EU, and as well as the individual member states of EU, they bring in all those migrants, many of them. So now you have a demographic challenge, and eventually an ethnic clash will occur in the future. But while many of those migrants were just pouring in, you had all those attacks going on. So what happened was that the population in Europe, in all those countries, they were traumatized by all those attacks, which caused them to feel, let me say this, it caused them to have an infantile attachment to one another, which means they couldn't think well. And because this was going on, very few people were able to see what was going on. Due to peer pressure, most people didn't even dare to question what was going on around them. And now, 2019, now suddenly many of those attacks stopped. Why? Now you don't hear anything about ISIS anymore. Now, people begin to wake up from the coma they were brought into, because those attacks brought the European population in a collective coma, in which people were so knocked out by trauma that they kind of fell in a deep sleep. And it's now that they're waking up from it And now they realize, okay, something's going on, but what is going on? And that is how they do it. I've used Europe since 2014 just to point this out to you. I can still clearly remember. I was 22, about to turn 23, and this was before this whole migration crisis thing and all those attacks. People's attitude in public was quite different. I would walk into a library, I would drop my bag, and I would just go look for some books. Or if I was in a train, I would leave my bag behind, I would go to the toilet, and I would come back. No theft, none of it. 2015, now, early 2016, I've noticed that if people see you with a bag and you have it with you, but you don't do much with the bag, they already begin to look at, oh, what is he doing? People began to have panic attacks. The mental health of many people went backwards, as well as their physical health, due to all those attacks that happened. So a change was brought to the population. Or better said, the collective trauma blinded them from the change that was going on, because it is obvious that they normally would not have accepted that change. That's how it goes with distraction. Something is going on that you likely would not accept. But because whoever wants this change to continue doesn't want you to resist it, they will seek to occupy your mind with something less relevant. And the thing that's less relevant is very close to the thing that's really relevant. But because one of you focus on the less relevant, and when they succeed in getting you stuck with the less relevant, they are secured. They can now continue doing what they want to do. And the moment you realize, okay, this was a distraction, it's way too late already. So, look, whenever a collective distraction is going on, you can sense it in the climate. You can sense it. Anytime there's a collective distraction, there are two things you will see. You will see people that obviously feel the unease, and they act out this unease by resisting what everyone's talking about. And you'll have people that will look weird on those that are resisting the narrative. Those two things you'll always see when a collective distraction is going on. I remember in 2009, I was working at a supermarket. I was eight. Was I eight? I don't know. It's actually okay. I was 18 back then. One of the guys that worked at the supermarket was so upset that everyone was talking about Michael Jackson all the time. He freaked out because everyone was talking about Michael Jackson. He couldn't stand people just keep talking about Michael Jackson. But all the other people continued living, but they were talking about Michael Jackson so often. So this guy felt the unease because he noticed something was off, and he acted it out. He didn't go and look at the bigger picture to figure out what's going on. That was his mistake. That was his error. Instead, he began to act out this frustration that he had, and that kept him trapped. And you often see this with a collective distraction. You will always have some individuals that will feel and experience unease for what it is. They're not trapped by this groupthink that blinds them from seeing that something obviously doesn't add up. But those people who experience the unease often don't seek solutions. And that's why, unbeknownst to them, they contribute to the deception by being resistant. You can't you can't resist a distraction successfully. Let me repeat that. You cannot resist a distraction successfully. You can't win resisting a distraction. That's not possible. It's not going to happen. When a distraction is going on, you ought to see through it. That means that you acknowledge what's going on, you acknowledge everyone is talking about it, but you also look around you to see what everyone is not talking about. You need to do it. You did not cause the distraction. You did not cause the consequences of the distraction. But distraction is happening, and you're part of the population, it also affects you, so you should deal with it in a beneficial and constructive way, lest you become a participant of it. Many people think that by resisting a distraction, they're doing the right thing. No. The reason I'm saying you're not doing the right thing is because you can't win by fighting a delusion. Because distractions are covert delusions. Okay? I'm not saying that if you were distracted that you're delusional, no. But a distraction is a delusion in disguise. And you don't defeat a delusion by fighting the delusion. By fighting the delusion, you will be powering the delusion. By ignoring the delusion, you will let it go unchecked. What do? You challenge the delusion with the truth. And how do you do it? By going off against those who fell for the distraction? No. You just ask yourself constructive questions. A delusion will lose its power when constructive questions are asked. When you fight a delusion, it will backfire on you. If you ignore it, the delusion will grow. Ask constructive questions. Why? Because a delusion is all about having an escape that's not really worth it. So, if, for example, there is this missing persons case that's going on, that's very complicated, and people are so stuck with it, ask some constructive questions about the case. When you notice inconsistencies in the case, ask constructive questions about the case. For example, you can ask, okay, this young teen disappeared on the 5th of December, and she was last seen on the 3rd of December. So there's a gap of 2 days. If she was last seen on the 3rd of December, how come people know for sure she disappeared on the 5th? I would like to know how they did it because I want to solve it. I want to participate in solving this case also. So ask constructive questions. When you keep asking constructive questions, the distraction will dissolve. Because a distraction is not meant for you to be constructively involved with it. A distraction is to keep you away from the better. There's something better out there for you that the enemy wants to keep you away from. So the enemy occupies you with something that will expire. The enemy may bring something good to you, but it will expire. And the thing that will expire is not meant for you to engage with it for the long term. And when you ask constructive questions, you show interest in long-term engagement. And the moment you show that, the distraction will dissolve. Because the more you seek long-term constructive engagement, the more clear it will become that it's either a scam or a hoax or just a bold-faced lie. That is how you disarm a narcissist also. Now, if you can avoid a narcissist, you avoid him or her. If you have no choice but to be involved, ask constructive questions. And you'll see they'll run away from you. They don't want that. The same it is with a distraction. I'm going to check if I have some questions here. Maybe I've something. Okay. By the way, if you have questions, just put them in the live chat. I'm here for you to answer them. Look, there's another type of distraction that's going on, and that, okay, I'm going to show to you. This is something that's going on right now, so you guys should know what I'm talking about. And that is the Amazon fires. Now, why am I singing this whole Amazon fire thing is a distraction? Because just think about it. If they call it the biggest rainforest on the earth, the Amazon region, and it's one of the lungs of the earth. If one of the lungs of the earth burn up, that means we all will have difficulty breathing here, including the elites that govern the world's population. The elites know that they need to be alive too. And the elites know that if they go too far, that believers will begin to pray a lot, and when that happens, there will be much supernatural activity, and God will intervene in a very, very powerful way. And they don't want that. They don't want a mighty intervention by the Most High. They don't want that. So they will never do so much harm on such a large scale to provoke a mighty reaction from God. They do child sacrifice, they do all of those things that are enabled by the commoners. But they will not endanger all the commoners in such an extent, because that would betray their world rule. So those fires in the Amazon, I'm not saying there are no fires going on, because that can happen in a dry season, but it's portrayed in mainstream media and used as a means to convince people to go onto a plant-based diet or to veganism. There's a whole agenda attached to this. It's all fear. They want you to think, oh, there, the lungs of the earth are burning, and the leaders don't care. We don't have the money to do anything. They want you to feel hopeless. They want you in despair. That is what it's all about. So that's also a form of distractions going on now. I'm not saying there are no fires in the Amazon. Okay, likely there is, but why are they reporting on it so much? So there is another type of distraction. Well, it's actually used to keep distractions going, and that is the creation of haunted places. Lately on YouTube, you find many youngsters that go out to abandoned places to record, and it's become a hype. And if you have a beautiful building that's still left from previous age and people want to visit it, okay, there's nothing wrong with it. But why now? Look, what the pagans often do is they build certain places where they conduct much human sacrifice, and that place becomes haunted and a portal for evil spirits. Or it becomes, as they call it, a stargate. That is what a stargate is. It's a portal created by the pagans where demons can manifest easily. without any effort. And often such places, well, not often, this is what always happens because they need to do this to create those demonic portals. They conduct many human sacrifices. They torture and kill a lot of people to create this intense negative climate, and demons then can enter into this intense negative climate. And then they only have to do minor sacrifices to keep the portal open. So here, they made a museum out of this, but they're showing you what has been going on for a very long time. They generate these haunted places to make people frightened. Now, those haunted places are haunted indeed, and evil spirits and let me say demonic entities can manifest effortlessly over there. So those places are indeed dangerous, except for believers to walk by faith, because they could enter easily and leave. Now, I'm not saying that as a believer you should want to go to such places, but those places are generated with a purpose to keep commoners trapped. They want you to go to work, get tired, get at home, watch TV, do what you have to do, go to sleep, and tomorrow repeat it all over again. That's what they want. So, haunted places, or stargates as they call them it in the paranormal, are used, obviously they're created to distract people. Because now you have a lot of folks that want to get rid of those haunted places, or they want to find out what happened in the past. Because a lot of people think that haunted places come because people that pass away haven't moved on to the other side. You have all this pagan thing of past lives, of reincarnation that keeps people trapped. So they create those stargates so that people keep focused on solving things that just have to be overcome. Now, hold on. I want you to tell me if you understood everything I've been saying until now. Because I want to focus now on the constructive questions that I told you ought to ask anytime you sense this distraction going on. But before I go into it, did all of you understand everything I said until now? Let me know in the live chat. I'll just wait till I get some. Okay. Hold on. Okay. About constructive questioning. And I'm going to use this Epstein controversy that's going on now. And I'm going to give examples of how you can use constructive questioning to break the spell of a distraction. Because remember, distraction may be a real thing that's going on. It doesn't have to be a fake thing. Nevertheless, it's about getting your focus away from something that's more relevant so you won't do God's will. So, okay. So you have this Epstein case, who they found out was involved in who had his own pedophile ring on his private island. You had many wealthy and rich people that came, and they did their thing over there with children. I don't have to go into the details. And there's likely a connection with the Clintons. I'm not going into that now. Just ask yourself the following first. Why does it get attention now? First question, why does it get attention now? You can write it down. Why now? That's the first thing you should ask. And when you ask to yourself, why now? Check what was going on before. And just before this whole Epstein controversy, you had this surviving R. Kelly going on. So ask yourself one important thing here. You have this white billionaire who's a devil worshiper who worshipped, he allegedly committed suicide, anyway, let's just go with the narrative. He's dead now. He worshipped Apollo. He was high into it. And she had this other Apollo worshiper who became the king of R&B, who suddenly received a lot of negative attention due to the dark room rituals he was involved in. Yes, to become big in the music industry, in the pop industry, or Hollywood or whatever, you need to worship the beast and you need to go through dark room rituals. The same like these guys were doing, okay? But they made a whole production surviving R. Kelly, and mainstream media spread it all around. Now, I'm not going to talk about whether this man was guilty of the things they accuse him of. He's guilty anyway because he's involved in beast worship. Okay? But why did they begin to talk about his case, let me say, less than a year ago? But since the 1990s, it was known that this man was sexually perverse. So it was known all along he was sexually perverse. Many of his songs were explicit about sex in a very explicit way. So why didn't do anything about it then? And here's what's going on. You had Corey, I don't know what the guy's name. I think it's Corey Feldman. Yes, he had this guy over here that brought out that he's a sellout anyway, so I'm not saying he's very trustworthy, but he pointed out that pedophilia was a very big problem behind the scenes. Then you had a lot of people paying attention to pedophilia in the top of mainstream society, and then you had this guy that appeared in this documentary, Surviving R. Kelly. So everyone was now talking about how bad and terrible this man is. And the purpose of it was so people want to notice this guy over here. Because he's white, he looks more like Apollo. So you put a black face of sexual degeneracy so people won't see the true face of the system they're living in. That is what it was all about. This one was used to hide this one. But because this one was way too open, this distraction failed. Haven't you noticed that you don't hear much anymore about surviving R. Kelly? And before R. Kelly, you had Bill Cosby. And don't let me even start about Bill Cosby. So, the question, why now, is very important. Always ask unto yourself, why now? I'm not telling you to ask it verbally or with your mouth, because that may cause controversy or unnecessary conflict, but ask it unto yourself. Why now? Because when you ask why now, you show interest for real, that you want to know why now, what's going on. It's not an accusation. So, after asking why now, ask how. How could it have happened? Whatever distraction is going to ask how. So in this case of Bill Cosby and all those others, ask how. Don't tell me that you have a man like this, quote unquote, molesting young girls for decades and people just didn't know about it. Or don't tell me about Bill Cosby. At the time he came up, racism was still very open against black folks. So if he was harming white women back then, they would have taken him out instantly. Why now that he's an old man, legally blind, and he's not able to defend himself well? I'm telling you why. Because I've seen through the deception. They want to make black people to be looked at as a degenerate, filthy people, so that folks will keep identifying with the Apollonian system. That is what they are doing. It's all a distraction. Now, I'm not saying that this man is innocent. I didn't say it. But why did they bring him out, and why did it suddenly stop? That's another thing with distractions. It suddenly stops. And that is the thing about common people, is that common people don't connect the dots. They don't. Because when this ISIS thing was going on since 2011, was 2011, 2012? Well, this ISIS thing was going on for several years. When it suddenly began to fade away, I was thinking, hold on a minute. Don't tell me that you have thousands of young men and even women that went all the way to Syria to fight for some political ideal. Now suddenly they all returned home and nobody talks about it anymore. Those people that went over there, that became demoralized, that became brainwashed, they've returned back home, that they bring that brainwashing with them. So you should expect more problems from them at home. But suddenly nobody talked about ISIS anymore. Is then I knew that this whole ISIS thing was used so that people wouldn't be aware of the transition that was going on. I wanted to show you guys one more thing here. Hold on. I made a video a little while back. No, this goes way too far back. It should be around here somewhere, yes. I'm not going to play it, but I'm going to show. This is what they are hiding. The fact that the Anglo-American era paused in 2008. And now it's the Muslim diaspora within the West and in other places that's taking over the economic and eventually political decision making. This is what they want to hide for the masses because they know that especially white Western people in Europe and North America, as well as East Asians, especially light-skinned East Asians, will not accept this at all. But it's going on, and they want this transition to happen smoothly. That is what they want to hide. That's how they did it throughout time. When the Principate turned to the dominant, you had distractions going on here. Same here, same here, same. And in those distractions, often real people died, they were sacrificed, but that's how they do it. So you ask the why now. The why should be in relationship to the timing. So check the timing, also check the how it happened. Now, so about normal life, that's all something I need to point out to you. Hold on. Normal. Normalcy or normality. Let me make this bigger. The condition of being normal, the state of being usual, typical, expected. Did you read that? Okay, let me read one more time. The condition. Oh, what? So you've been conditioned. So it's not a natural thing. You have to be conditioned in it. So it's artificial, it's enforced, of being normal. Normal has to do with the norm. So you're conditioned in a norm. The state of being usual. So it's a norm that's usual, that's expected of you. So you're conditioned to conform with expectation. That's normalcy or normality. So that means that normalcy can be a distraction in itself. You have naturality and you have normality. Naturality is something that's natural. For example, you need to sleep, you need to eat, you need to drink, you need to go to the bathroom, you need to relax, you need a certain amount of sleep. That's natural. Normal is the behaviors that people expect of you. Okay, let's say that someone's relative dies. You can expect some shock, some sadness from an individual surrounding that event. That's natural. And it's also normal, expected, that during that time an individual withdraws a bit socially. But it's not natural for someone to be stuck in this grieving process for years. That's not natural. Because when someone is stuck in this grieving process for years, they can also not function according to social norms. So it's also not normal. So normal and natural can go hand in hand if the normal does not violate the natural. But when the normal violates the normal becomes a distraction. Too many people want to be normal because they think if I'm normal, I'm accepted. But what if normal is a trap? It can be normal for parents to smack their children, to hit their children so the children will comply with them. But it's not natural to harm your own offspring. So the norm, what people expect and what people put up with, goes against the natural. So in this case, the norm has to change to align with the natural. So normal and natural can go hand in hand. It goes like this. Any norm, any community enforces on its people must be in harmony with God's design. The moment any norm is not in harmony with God's design, it is a trap. So that's something to be aware of. Now, I read now that someone says, Christopher Alexander says, if something is induced, it cannot be natural. Well, you can induce things that are natural. You can induce good. I'm saying you can induce things that are natural. Okay, it's possible. But what the thing you are inducing is it in harmony with the natural human design? If you expect someone to be empathic with their fellow human beings, if that's a norm you expect of them, that is in harmony with our natural design, that we are empathic towards one another. Okay, so you can enforce that, you can induce that. But if you expect someone to only have empathy towards others and never and you condition them never to expect empathy in return, now you're teaching someone to allow themselves to be drained, exploited, and abused. That may be established as a norm, but it's not natural. So in this case, the norm is a violation of the natural. And what happens is that in any society, in any community, where the oppressive norm is tolerated for way too long, eventually that community will implode. Implode with violence. But so what happens when the implosion is about to happen? Distractions come up to relieve the people from the tension of the oppressive norm. Don't get me wrong. We human beings should have norms, but we should be able to account for the norms and to justify the norms based on what is right in the long term. Mm-hmm. Okay. A third thing to ask. The one thing is why now? That's the timing. The second is how. The third thing to ask yourself is, how do I say it in a very short way? What do we do about it? Ask why now? That's timing. Ask how. And once you understand those, you ask what do you do about it? And what do you do about it? Oh, let me extend the question. What do we do about this to contribute to the long-term well-being of our people? And that is something very important. What do we do about this thing to contribute to the long-term well-being of our people? That is another thing you need to ask when you're dealing with distractions. So understand that a distraction can only remain effective when people don't ask the constructive questions. The moment people begin to ask the constructive questions, that deception loses its strength. The spell becomes weak and the spell will be broken off of many people. The only thing is, a lot of people do not ask the constructive questions. I just taught you 3 questions you need to ask. Why now? How? What do we do to generate a positive long-term outcome? Those 3 questions you should always ask. It's weird they don't teach you this in school. It's weird that in church they don't talk about this. Because many schools and most churches are part of the Apollonian deception. That's why. I'm just saying it as it is. So don't exhaust your mind trying to figure out what's going on. Just ask those 3 constructive questions. Okay, someone asked a question, okay? Ghost Lotus. So, for example, you are a musician but haven't had the finances to fully pursue it. Then, what little material you release, local people, artists steal your ideas. What would possibly be behind that? Now, ask yourself, why now? So, you are a musician, you don't have much finances, but you are dedicated to music. So, you make some music and you release some of it. You released it, so it's obvious it is yours. Right? So you've been doing it for a while, but now suddenly someone steals your idea. Why now? What was going on in your life when it happened? Were you about to have a breakthrough? Were you going through some depression? What was going on at the time? Second is, how did they steal it? Did they saw it online and decide, you know what, we're going to take it? Was it one of your friends that was part of the production that secretly wanted to make a deal behind your back? Ask the how. And then ask what you're going to do about it for the long-term benefit. When you do this, you've broken the spell of violence off of you, because this violation, stealing your ideas or music, it's all about triggering you in anger. They want you to be angry and take actions against them. Because the moment you take actions against them out of anger, you're focusing on them and you're energizing them. And by energizing them, you're energizing the demons behind them. They're stealing from you because they don't have any ideas of their own. They want to use your good quality to relieve themselves. So to get you involved with them, they steal from you so that you will go into court cases against them. And by doing that, you become exhausted and you become more familiar with them. So they're building up familiarity in you towards them. Even if it is a negative familiarity, it's still a familiarity. And sooner or later, without you being aware of it, you'll be taking things over from them. And that's how they've affected you. But by asking those three constructive basic questions, you break the spell. Because those three questions are there to increase your insight. When you lack insight, they get to you. So understand that anytime, let's say for example, okay, I used an example before, but let's say now that you're single as a man, okay, you're a believer, you're single, you're doing God's will, and suddenly you have all those women that begin to give you attention everywhere. As a man, you're happy with this because you're single. You think, okay, there may be something for me in it, but oh, hold on. Why now? Why now? Oh, you're serving God. You're doing God's will. You're breaking through. You're having your breakthroughs at the moment. You are breaking financial curses. You're breaking negative soul ties. You have just cast out the spirit of fear and the spirit of violence. You're breaking through. So now that you're breaking through, suddenly a lot of women who knew you existed, who never paid attention to you, suddenly they just have to contact you all the time. Why? Why now? Oh, so that you will give attention to them and be distracted by them instead of continuing in the faith. Because all those chains, paranormal chains you've broken off of you, makes you more effective in the here and now. And Satan doesn't want you to be effective in the here and now. So he begins to push all those adulterous women onto you who may appear to be really interested in you, but they're not. It's demons provoking them to seek relief from you. Let me say like this: the demons will know they are relief seekers, and now the demons push them in your presence, so they will seek relief at your expense. But because you're single, You have your natural male vulnerability. Satan triggers this vulnerability to get you hooked up with one of those um, energy vampires disguised as an attractive woman. They may be an attractive woman. They may be attractive indeed, but they are energy vampires. But you don't see this about them yet. So then ask how? How come suddenly those women suddenly have all this interest in me? I've been for years on social media, and all those years social media, I barely get friend requests, and now I have many of those women are suddenly adding me, and out of the blue, they begin to share all their problems with me. Now they kind of trust me, and I'm thinking, what? Ask the how. How to do it. Now we know the how. The enemy is using your influence to draw negative attention to you. And now the enemy pushes people on you to overwhelm you with their presence. Because you are kind-hearted, you won't do the right thing with people, and this is what the enemy uses against you. So your good attitudes is used against you by the enemy. And that's why you ought to obey the Holy Spirit. If the Holy Spirit tells you don't pick up the phone, or block that individual, or just don't give in to it, obey the Holy Spirit. And then you ask yourself, what do I do about this in the long run for my benefit? And you should know exactly what to do then. Bye. You cut them off. Because that is how those energy vampires are. It's all about them, their needs, their hurt. They're like professional victims. There's always something up with them. And they always demand from you. And here's the difference between a fake victim and a real victim. A real victim, once they receive sympathy, they're happy and they want to move forward, they want a solution. A fake victim, which is an energy vampire, just wants to be validated at all costs. It's all about their feelings and how they feel and how you make them feel. You notice about such people, there are also men like that, okay? So I'm not picking on women, there are also men like that. You notice with them is that they seldom talk about other people. It's all about them. And when it's their time to give some affection or empathy to someone else, you will notice sooner or later that they're not willing to do it, they're not interested. One thing about those professional victims is they know very well how to say no. They fake being so weak and so hurt and so vulnerable. Okay, let's say you have this Joanna that keeps calling you because she is always involved with the wrong guy. And so send a Chinese guy onto her one day. Just hire a Chinese actor and send it onto her. When a Chinese guy begins to flirt with her, she will automatically say, I'm not interested, bye, or stop bothering me, or she will begin to lie that the guy is stalking her. Suddenly she knows how to say no, how to back off. But then you begin to think, oh, okay. So a Chinese guy comes, a Macedonian guy comes, a Brazilian guy comes, and she knows how to say no. Yet you always keep calling me, asking for help because you keep falling for the wrong guy. What's going on here? You can't say no. You know very well when you're not interested, and you know how to ignore people. You know how to scream at people when you're not interested and all of that. So why can't you do it with all the so-called wrong guys you're falling for? No, Joanna. You're out of your mind. You're an anti-vampire, demonically possessed, and you're sent by Satan to drain me. Get out of here, Satan. Get out. That's how you need to do it. This is not only for men. Female believers. I'm talking to the females who follow Christ that are watching this. If you have a female friend or a female relative just like that, just avoid her in a polite and honorable way. And if they keep haunting you, cast them out. Cast them out. I'm not saying to scold them verbally or to attack them verbally. Just the same you cast out an evil spirit, cast them out of your life. Whether it's blocking them on social media or moving away from them or changing your phone number, just do it. Listen, believer. Anytime you are progressing in victory, the enemy will always bring energy vampires near you. Always. And those energy vampires will always play the victim. And because worldly people tend to believe energy vampires, because worldly people don't think clearly, you will have psychic violence against you, because those energy vampires will bring negative attention to you, they will bring danger to you. That's why the enemy sends them. So always ask constructive questions. If someone is an energy vampire, they will not handle constructive questions well. They may begin to accuse, saying, but you don't really care about me because you keep asking those questions. Well, they begin to feel attacked, or they become disinterested, saying they're not interested, or they just walk away. Always ask constructive questions. Do it. And people will be exposed very quickly. Hey, I just revealed onto you how to expose someone's true colors. You don't have to put them through tests. You don't have to observe them for a long. Just keep asking constructive questions. Constructive questions with the purpose to get a long-term beneficial end. Keep asking constructive questions with the aim to get a beneficial long-term outcome. Keep doing that. And people that are toxic will become fed up with you. They will become tired of you. They will just avoid you, or they begin to lie behind your back. They can't handle that. Someone says that rejection is protection. First of all, rejection doesn't actually exist, but rejection in the sense that people refuse you because you don't meet their expectations. Listen, if you are in a bad state and someone does not involve themselves with you, it's both for your safety and their safety. Okay? Someone's just avoiding trouble. Okay, that's a good thing. They're not against you, they just don't want any of you to be in trouble. So that's why they keep you at a distance. Okay? But if someone refuses you because you don't meet one of their narcissistic expectations, praise the Lord they refused you. Okay? Because what do you want? For them to embrace you, to exploit you? Is that what you want? I'm not saying that their refusal of you is right. It's not right. It's wrong. But they are narcissistic. They don't want to change. They're toxic. So it's better for them to refuse you in a painful way than for them to drain you and kill you. Again, ask constructive questions. That's what I'm saying. Don't fight distractions. Don't fight those that Satan sent to you. Don't try to negotiate with them. Don't try to change them. Absolutely don't try to change them because you can't. You can't, so don't even try it because you can't do it, okay? What you should do is ask constructive questions. By asking constructive questions, you remain in the positive. By asking constructive questions, you keep yourself out of their toxicity. And by doing that, you will see through who people really are. You will see through them. This whole idea of enforcing boundaries and having principles are all destructive coping mechanisms of the world. Just ask constructive questions. What did Christ do when the scribes and Pharisees tried to trick him into a fight? He began to ask constructive questions. That's what Christ did. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes you just need to pick up your stuff and walk away from someone, especially when someone's about to explode. But apart from someone exploding, just ask constructive questions. Because seriously, believer, toxic people can't handle people that come with constructive questions. Because a constructive questions imply that you have a beneficial purpose in mind. And the toxic individual has no beneficial purpose in mind at all. They just want to be relieved, and that's it. They don't care what it does to you. They don't even care what it does to themselves in the long run. They just want to leave. Just like a drug addict wants to get their high at everyone's expense. That's how they are. So you will anger them by being so constructively minded. Remain that way. Remain that way. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me see. Okay, believers. This video has been for around 2 hours. I don't want to make this video too long for those that want to look back and make notes. So I'm going to close it now. Thank you for being here. Agree with Christ that you will never be distracted. Be at peace.